I had always prided myself on being a patient man, the kind who would avoid confrontations at all costs. But that night, something inside me snapped. I don't know if it was the buildup of weeks of little things that had gone wrong, or if it was just her attitude that pushed me over the edge. Either way, when Mia stormed into the living room, her eyes blazing with anger, I knew this was different. "Mia, where the hell do you think you're going?" I asked, my voice a little too sharp. I hadn't meant for it to come out that way, but there it was. She didn't even look at me, pulling on her jacket with an urgency that made my chest tighten. "I'm going to the club," she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Don't wait up." I stood there, frozen for a second, trying to process what she was saying. The club? The club? It was Thursday night, for crying out loud. A weeknight. And we had plans, well, I had plans. Plans to spend some quiet time together. To talk. To reconnect. "Wait a minute," I said, stepping forward. "Are you serious? You're really going to go out again? You've been out almost every night this week, Mia." My voice rose without me meaning to. "This is ridiculous." She paused, looking me up and down as if I was some kind of inconvenience. "You're always complaining, James. I just need a little space." "And you," she waved a hand dismissively, like I wasn't even worth the effort. "You can't keep controlling everything." I felt my face heat up. She was twisting everything I said. The truth was, I had never tried to control her. I had just wanted to have one evening where we could relax together. But apparently, that wasn't in her plans. No, she wanted to go out, as she always did, leaving me behind like an afterthought. "You know I don't like you going out like this, Mia," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. "You're drinking, staying out late, and you don't even care what time you come home. It's unsafe." "I'm not okay with it." She shot me a look, one that said everything I needed to know. She didn't care. At all. "Do whatever you want," I added, though I immediately regretted it. "It's not like my opinion matters." My voice was thick with sarcasm, and even I could hear it. Her eyes hardened. "Maybe it's because you don't respect me anymore," she muttered under her breath, turning away from me. She grabbed her purse off the counter, slinging it over her shoulder. "You always act like I'm some kind of child who can't make her own decisions." "Well, I'm going out. Deal with it." Before I could say anything more, she slammed the door behind her, leaving me standing in the hallway of our apartment, stunned. My fists clenched involuntarily at my sides. How had we gotten here? This wasn't the woman I had married. The woman who once promised to never leave me behind for a night out, who once cherished the time we spent together. And yet, here she was, walking out the door, without so much as a second glance. The silence in the apartment was suffocating. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall and the sound of my own heartbeat, faster and louder than normal. For a long while, I didn't move. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to fix this. I'd been trying for months, doing everything I could to make her happy. But she didn't see it. She never did. All she wanted was to get away. And now, the night was just starting, and I felt like I was already losing her. Mia would always come home, though. That much I knew. But the thought of her out there, of her mingling with strangers, dancing, flirting, drinking, it made my stomach churn. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't just let her wander off into the night, doing whatever the hell she wanted, without even thinking about me. And that's when the plan started to form. I'd spent so many years trying to be the good husband, the understanding one, the patient one. But what did it get me? Nothing. She was slipping away from me, and I couldn't just sit around and let it happen. Maybe it was time to show her a little lesson. A lesson that would make her realize what she had in me. That I wasn't just some guy she could take for granted. I grabbed my phone, already knowing what I had to do. I was done. She wanted to play games? Well, I'd play too. But I'd play to win. I dialed the number. The plan was simple, but it would send a message loud and clear. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "James," the voice said. "What's up?" "David," I said, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. "I need you to do something for me. Anything, man. What's going on?" "I need you to help me make sure Mia knows she can't just walk all over me," I said, my voice low. There was a pause on the other end. Then David laughed. "What's going on? Trouble in paradise?" I'll explain later, I said, my eyes narrowing as I looked out the window at the dark, empty streets. Just make sure she feels like she made a mistake going out tonight. Let's make it count. And just like that, I had my first step. I knew Mia thought she could do whatever she wanted. But tonight, I'd make her see things differently. She wanted a night out? Fine. She could have it. But by the time she got home, everything would be different. And I would make sure of that. The evening wore on, and as I sat in our empty apartment, I felt the weight of what I was about to do pressing down on me. I wasn't proud of what was happening, but I couldn't back out now. Mia had pushed me too far, and for once, I needed to take control. I glanced at the clock. It was almost 10 p.m. My anger had subsided slightly, replaced by something colder, more calculated. I picked up my phone and texted David. It's time. Do it. The message was short and to the point, but I knew it would get the job done. David had a way of making things happen. He wasn't my best friend for nothing. We'd been through some wild stuff together, and I knew if I asked him for help, he'd come through without hesitation. Mia didn't deserve what was about to happen. Or maybe she did. I wasn't sure anymore. All I knew was that she couldn't keep walking all over me, expecting me to just accept it. She needed to understand that I wasn't just some fool she could leave behind whenever she felt like it. I stood up from the couch and walked toward the window. From here, I could see the lights of the city stretching out below, each one a symbol of freedom, of the life Mia seemed to want more than anything. She had always loved the night, the clubs, the noise, the music, the people, and every time she went out, I was left behind, waiting. For a long time, I tried to be the understanding husband, the one who let her have her fun. But tonight was different. Something had shifted. I was done playing the fool. My phone buzzed in my hand, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was a message from David. Done. She's at the bar, talking to some guy. She's already had a few drinks. You want me to keep an eye on her? I felt a sick twist in my stomach, a wave of jealousy washing over me. David was right. Mia had always been like this, chatting up random guys when she went out, flirting, laughing, and I sat at home, wondering what the hell she saw in these strangers that she couldn't see in me anymore. I took a deep breath and typed back. No, don't do anything yet. Let her have her fun. I'll handle it when the time comes. It was hard to admit, but I wasn't just angry at Mia. I was angry at myself, too. Angry that I'd let things get to this point, that I hadn't seen the signs earlier, hadn't acted before she drifted so far away from me. But there was no going back now. This was the path I had chosen. I sat back down on the couch, running my hand through my hair. My phone buzzed again, but this time, it wasn't David. It was Mia. Her name lit up the screen, and for a moment, I thought about ignoring it. Let her wonder where I was. Let her feel the sting of being left on read. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. She was still my wife, after all. I swiped the screen, my thumb trembling slightly. James, I'm having fun. Her text read. I needed this. I hope you're okay. The words stung more than I expected. She needed this. And what did I need? What had I been asking for, hoping for? Her attention, her love, her time. But all I ever seemed to get was a half-hearted apology when she came home drunk, slurring her words and collapsing into bed next to me like it was nothing. I didn't reply. What was there to say? Mia wasn't going to listen to me anymore. I was about to set the phone down when it buzzed again. This time, it was a photo, a selfie, taken at the bar. Mia was standing next to some guy, her arm draped casually around his shoulder. Her smile was wide, too wide, and her eyes were sparkling. Exactly the way she used to look when we first met, before everything got so complicated. The guy in the photo had his arm around her waist, his face inches from hers. It was a clear shot of what was going on. A simple picture, but to me, it felt like a knife to the chest. I clenched my jaw. She was already that far gone. I couldn't look at it anymore. I turned my phone face down on the coffee table, my hands shaking. Anger boiled up inside me, hot and fast, and I had to do something to release it. I stood up, pacing around the room, my thoughts racing. What was she thinking? That I wouldn't care? That I wouldn't get hurt? I wasn't even sure I cared about her anymore. Not like I used to. But I wasn't going to let her humiliate me like this. I grabbed my phone again and texted David, "Get ready. It's almost time." I knew Mia would be there for hours, drinking, dancing, surrounded by strangers. But I also knew she wouldn't stay out forever. She never did. And when she came back, she'd find me waiting for the moment when everything would change. I wasn't going to let her walk back in here like nothing happened. I wasn't going to just sit by and watch her tear us apart. No, tonight, she would feel the consequences of her actions. And when she walked through that door, she wouldn't be coming back to the same James who let her do whatever she wanted. No, this time, she would face the man who had decided it was time to take back control. By the end of the night, Mia would understand exactly what it felt like to be left behind. I wasn't sure what would happen after that, but for now, it didn't matter. The game had started, and there was no turning back. I checked the time again. It was just past midnight. The club was in full swing, and Mia was still out there, probably deep in some conversation with that guy in the photo. I could imagine her, all smiles and laughter, the glow of the bar lights reflecting off her face, the music thumping in the background, drowning out everything except her need to escape, to be seen, to feel something, anything, besides the weight of the life we had built together. But I was done being her afterthought. I had no illusions that I could ever go back to being the man she loved, the man who could keep her at home, who could be enough for her. But tonight I wasn't playing the passive, patient husband anymore. Tonight, I was going to make sure she understood exactly what she was risking. And what I was about to do was just the first step. I ran my hand through my hair, a nervous habit I'd had since I was a teenager, but tonight it felt different. The anxiety wasn't the usual kind, the kind you feel before a presentation or an important meeting. No, this felt colder, like a creeping sense of inevitability, as if the world were slowly tilting, and everything I tried to hold together was crumbling. But this time, I wasn't the one who would be left behind. This time, Mia would feel it. I grabbed my phone again, almost absent-mindedly, and checked for any new messages. Nothing. My mind kept flashing back to that photo she'd sent, her arm around some guy, her face lit up with the kind of joy I hadn't seen in months. The guy was leaning in too close, too comfortable, too familiar. I didn't want to think about it, but I couldn't stop myself. I texted David again. "Everything ready on your end?" A few seconds passed before he replied. "Yeah, she's getting a bit tipsy. She's dancing now. You still sure about this?" It was a simple question, but I could feel the weight behind it. David was the kind of guy who wouldn't judge me, but he also wasn't afraid to call me out when I was about to do something reckless. I wasn't sure anymore. Was I doing the right thing? Or was I just letting my pride destroy what little was left of my marriage? I knew the answer, even if I didn't want to admit it. I was past the point of caring. I was so far down the rabbit hole at this point that I didn't know how to pull myself out. But I wasn't backing down. Not now. Yeah. I typed back, my fingers steady. She won't know what hit her. I took another deep breath, the air in the room feeling thick. I grabbed the jacket I'd left hanging by the door, pulled it on, and stepped outside. The cold air hit me immediately, and I welcomed it. The night felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. It was late, and the city was quieter now, though the hum of the streets still lingered in the background. My thoughts were all over the place, but there was one thing I was certain about. This was happening. I didn't even know what I was going to say to Mia when she came home, but I couldn't think about that yet. She wasn't even in my mind anymore. It was all about the message, the statement I was about to make. I stepped into my car, started the engine, and drove off into the night. The club was a few miles away, tucked into a busy part of the city where neon lights flickered over the sidewalks and crowds of young people filled the bars and clubs like an endless wave. I'd been there a handful of times, but it had never felt like my scene. It was too loud, too crowded, too full of people who seemed to have forgotten why they were there in the first place. Mia loved it. I parked a few blocks down from the club and walked the rest of the way. I wasn't nervous, but my pulse was racing as I approached the entrance. I could see people lined up to get in, some already half drunk, some laughing and shouting over the music, all of them oblivious to the life I was about to disrupt. I stood for a moment, watching the bouncers check IDs at the door. I was too far to make out Mia's face, but I knew she was somewhere inside. Maybe still dancing, maybe talking to that guy, but she was in there, and soon enough, I'd be too. I walked past the line, avoiding the bouncer's eyes. I had a reputation with them. Mia and I came here often enough, and they knew me well enough to let me slip past. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of alcohol and sweat, the bass of the music vibrating through the floor and up into my chest. I scanned the room quickly, knowing it wouldn't take long to find her. And when I did, when I saw her across the crowded dance floor, her hair swaying as she moved, something inside me snapped. There she was, laughing, her eyes sparkling, her body pressed close to that guy. She had no idea I was here, no idea that I'd followed her. I could feel the anger rising in me again, but I swallowed it down. This wasn't the time for a confrontation. Not yet. I made my way toward the bar, eyes fixed on Mia. I couldn't stop looking at her, even as I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. It was almost time. Back at the bar, Mia and her new friend were having a conversation that, from the way she was laughing, seemed to be getting a little more intimate by the minute. I couldn't hear what they were saying over the music, but I didn't need to. I could see the way he was leaning in, the way she didn't push him away. A pang of jealousy burned inside me, hotter than anything I'd ever felt before. But this was all part of the plan. I couldn't let my emotions get the best of me. Tonight, I wasn't going to lose. Tonight, I was going to make sure she felt the sting of her choices. I stood there at the bar, trying my best to blend into the crowd. The music was loud, too loud, but it only seemed to fuel the fire inside me. I wasn't here to have fun. I wasn't here to drown out the pain with alcohol or the flashing lights. I was here for one reason, and one reason only: to make Mia realize exactly what she was doing. I scanned the room again, and there she was. Mia, my wife, laughing at something that guy had just said, leaning into him as if I didn't even exist. The jealousy surged again, hot and sharp, like a blade being twisted in my chest. The way he was looking at her, the way he touched her arm, everything about it made my blood boil. She was lost to me, and I was going to make sure she knew it. For a second, I thought about walking over to them, confronting her right then and there, pulling her away from the guy, making her feel like she was making the biggest mistake of her life. But I stopped myself. It wasn't time yet. Not yet. I needed to make her feel what I had been feeling for months, the hollow ache of being ignored, of being made invisible. If I confronted her now, it would be too easy. She'd walk away, apologize, and tell me it was nothing, just another night out, just another distraction. But it wasn't nothing. Not anymore. It was everything. I turned my attention back to the bar, ordered a drink, and waited. David's words echoed in my mind. "You sure about this?" I had been sure when I sent the first text, when I began to devise this plan. But now, I wasn't so certain. The reality of it felt heavier than I had imagined. Mia was my wife, the woman I had promised to spend the rest of my life with. Was it really worth it? Was the pain I was about to inflict on her worth it? But then I watched her again, her laugh ringing in my ears, the way she looked at that guy with that look, that flirtatious, unbothered smile that used to be mine, that used to be only for me. It was all too much. She didn't even look my way. I took a deep breath and turned my back to the bar, forcing myself to calm down. The situation was spiraling, but I could still control it. I could still win. I needed to be patient. The minutes dragged by like hours. The bar crowd shifted around me, people bumping into me without a second glance. The whole scene felt so alien, so far removed from the life I used to know. The loud, chaotic energy of the club was dizzying. I wanted to leave. I wanted to just walk out of here and forget everything. But that would mean admitting defeat. And I wasn't ready to do that. Not yet. I looked over at Mia again. She and the guy were still talking, still getting closer. I couldn't hear their conversation, but the way he was touching her arm, casually, intimately, told me everything I needed to know. She didn't care about me anymore. Not enough to stop this. And the worst part? She didn't even seem to care that I was here. She hadn't seen me. I wasn't part of her world anymore. It hurt, more than I wanted to admit. I reached for my phone, fighting the urge to send her a message, to tell her what I was feeling. But I knew better than that. If I showed her my cards now, she'd just laugh it off, maybe even apologize half-heartedly. I couldn't give her that power. I looked down at my phone. Another text from David. She's drunk. You ready? The message hung there, taunting me. I knew what this meant. Mia was slipping further away, and soon enough, she'd be in no state to stop anything. I took another deep breath, sending a reply. Do it. It's time. The first move was subtle, just a little nudge in the right direction. I watched as David, standing near the bar, made eye contact with the bouncer. I could see the way he signaled him. It was nothing overt, just a slight gesture, a flick of the wrist. But it was enough. The bouncer, who had always let us slide in before, made his move. He approached Mia and her new friend, and I could see the conversation shift. The bouncer was talking to them, pointing toward the exit. I didn't know what was being said, but I saw the guy's face change. His posture stiffened. Mia's expression shifted too, confusion, frustration. The energy in the air changed instantly. She had no idea what was going on, but whatever it was about to send her reeling. For a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered. This was her choice. She was the one who'd made me feel invisible. She was the one who had disrespected me, who'd left me behind without a second thought. She wanted to live this way? Fine. But I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. Mia stood up, now visibly annoyed, and exchanged some words with the bouncer. She glanced around, clearly looking for a way out of this situation. But I wasn't going to let her leave without feeling the weight of the choices she had made tonight. I wasn't going to let her get away with it again. I watched as she turned back toward the guy, and something inside me twisted. I could see the way she was trying to smooth things over, to make everything feel normal again. But it was too late. The damage had already been done. I couldn't stop myself. I moved toward them, careful not to make my presence too obvious, but close enough to watch Mia's face twist in surprise when she finally saw me. Her eyes widened, recognition flashing in them. She opened her mouth, about to say something, but I was ready for it. I reached out, touching her arm lightly, enough to stop her mid-sentence. Mia, I said, my voice quiet but steady, I think it's time to go. The words hit her like a bucket of cold water. Her face fell, and I could see the realization flicker across her features. The man at her side backed off, retreating into the crowd as if he knew exactly what was happening. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Mia, still caught off guard, finally managed a shaky laugh. What's this, James? You come all the way down here to... What? Interrupt my fun. Try to make me feel guilty. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She already knew what this was. Mia stood there for a moment, frozen, caught somewhere between shock and annoyance. Her eyes darted between me and the guy she had been talking to, who was now making his way through the crowd, probably hoping to escape whatever scene was unfolding. I couldn't blame him. He had no idea what was going on. But I wasn't concerned with him. I wasn't even concerned with the crowd or the noise or the flashing lights. No, tonight was about one thing only, Mia realizing what she had done. I could see her trying to regain her composure. She ran a hand through her hair, tugging at it as if it would help her think clearly. James, what the hell is your problem? She snapped, her voice tinged with frustration. I'm out here trying to enjoy myself, and you? Trying to enjoy yourself? I interrupted, my voice low but firm. Enjoy yourself? Is that what you call it? Parading around with some random guy while I'm sitting at home wondering where the hell you've gone? Her face tightened. You don't get it, James. I need space. I need to do my own thing. I can't just keep sitting at home waiting for you to notice me. Her words shot out like daggers, each one cutting deeper than the last. I felt my chest tighten. This was it. This was the heart of it all, the raw, unfiltered truth. The part of her that I had been ignoring for so long, thinking that things would just fix themselves. But they hadn't, and now here we were. Notice you? I echoed, my voice rising despite my attempts to keep it in check. Is that what you think this is about? This isn't about me not noticing you, Mia. This is about you disappearing every chance you get. This is about you putting everything else before us. Before me. I've been here, waiting for you to give a damn about me, about what we had. But you just keep running away. Her eyes flashed with anger. Oh, so now I'm running away? I'm escaping? You know what? James? Maybe I am. Maybe I am trying to escape this suffocating mess we've turned into. Maybe I am trying to breathe again. I could feel my blood boiling, but I fought to keep my voice steady. I had to stay in control. I had to make her understand. This isn't about you needing space, Mia. It's about you running away from us. From everything we built together. You don't just get to walk out every time things get tough. You don't get to leave me behind, pretending like I don't matter. I matter, Mia. And so does this, us. She took a step back, her face paling slightly. I could tell I was hitting her harder than I expected, but I wasn't backing down. Not now. You think I don't care about us? You think I don't care about you? Her voice trembled with a mix of anger and vulnerability. You don't get it. I'm just trying to find myself again. I've been lost for so long, James. And you're not helping. You think this is easy for me? You think it's easy to be trapped in a relationship where everything I do feels like a betrayal? I stared at her, fighting the urge to reach out, to comfort her, to somehow make this all go away. But I knew better now. I couldn't keep coddling her. I couldn't keep letting her get away with this. You're not trapped, Mia. You're free. You've always been free. You just choose to walk away every time it gets hard. And I'm done with it. I'm done pretending like I'm fine with it. She stared at me for a long time, her expression unreadable. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, but for once, I wasn't going to let her twist this around on me. I wasn't going to let her turn the blame back on me, like she always did. I don't know what you want me to say, James, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how to fix this. You want to fix it? I asked, my tone suddenly sharp. Then stop running. Stop hiding. Stop pretending like you don't know exactly what you're doing. Because I'm not going to keep playing the fool. I'm not going to keep letting you walk all over me. You want a real answer? Here it is. I'm done being the guy who waits for you to come home. I'm done being the guy who gets to pick up the pieces when you're finished with your little escape. Mia flinched at my words, but I couldn't stop now. It felt too good, too freeing to finally say what I'd been holding in for so long. You're not the only one who's been hurting, Mia. I've been here. I've been waiting for you to come back, to remember what we had. But it's like you don't even care. And I can't keep doing this. Not anymore. There was a long, tense silence between us. Mia was looking at me like she didn't recognize the person standing in front of her. And maybe, for a moment, I didn't recognize myself either. But I couldn't go back. Not after everything. I don't know what you want from me, James, she said, her voice quieter now, a touch of desperation creeping in. You're making it sound like I've chosen this. Like I've chosen to hurt you. But that's not it. I've just been, I don't know, trying to figure things out. I don't know what to do anymore. You can start by being honest with yourself, I said, my voice softening, though I wasn't sure why. By stopping the lies. By stopping the games. Her eyes flickered with uncertainty. For the first time in a long while, I saw something break through that tough exterior. The vulnerability, the fear of being alone. It was there, just beneath the surface. I am being honest, she whispered, her voice cracking. I'm just scared, James. Scared that maybe we're not the same people we were. I felt the weight of her words crash over me. And for the first time, I wasn't sure what to say. Maybe she was right. Maybe we weren't the same people anymore. Maybe we never could be again. The silence between us hung heavy in the air, thick with unspoken words, as if the world had paused just for this moment. Mia was standing there, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, her face pale, the corners of her eyes damp with unshed tears. She looked so small, so vulnerable, standing in the middle of this chaotic club, surrounded by people who were oblivious to the storm brewing right here, right now. I wasn't sure if I wanted to comfort her or walk away. I wasn't sure if I even knew how to fix what was broken between us anymore. I was so angry, so full of everything that had built up inside me over the last few months. But beneath that anger, there was something else. The deep, aching sadness that I hadn't let myself feel until now. Mia's voice broke the silence. What are you waiting for, James? You want me to beg you? You want me to apologize for everything I've done? For everything I've failed to do? The bitterness in her words hit me like a slap, but I didn't react. Instead, I stood there, staring at her. Her face was flushed now, her lips trembling as she struggled to keep it together. There was a part of me that wanted to hold her, to tell her everything would be okay. But I knew that wasn't what either of us needed. "I don't need an apology, Mia," I said quietly. "What I need is for you to see what you've done. To see the way you've torn us apart piece by piece. You've been pushing me away, and I've let you. I've let you get away with it for far too long. And now, I can't keep pretending like it's okay. Like we're okay." Her eyes flickered with something. Guilt, maybe, or perhaps something deeper. "You think it's that easy? You think I've been pushing you away on purpose? You think I've been doing this just to hurt you?" I stepped closer, my heart racing in my chest. "Maybe not on purpose, Mia, but you've been doing it. And now it's too late." The weight of those words hit her hard. I could see it in her eyes, the flicker of something breaking, something shifting. The sharp edge of her defensiveness softened for a second, and for a moment, she looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time in a long while. "James." She started. But whatever she was going to say was cut short by a sharp, unfamiliar voice. Well, look what we have here." I turned instinctively, the cold rush of surprise and anger flooding my veins as I saw who had spoken. The man. The one who had been with Mia earlier, the one she had been laughing with. His name, I vaguely remembered, was Mark. He was still standing near the edge of the dance floor, his arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips as he watched us. I didn't say anything at first. I was too stunned, too consumed by everything that had just happened. I had expected this night to be difficult, but I hadn't prepared for this, hadn't prepared for him to make an appearance like this. "What's the matter?" Mark continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You guys need some privacy for your little lover's quarrel?" Mia flinched, her face flushing as she turned toward him. She looked embarrassed, like a part of her wanted to crawl into herself and disappear. "Mark, please." "I'm not." She stopped herself, her words faltering. I could see what was happening, though. The way she hesitated. The way she had no idea how to explain herself without making it worse. It wasn't about him. It was about us. And it was clear to me now. She didn't have the strength to fight for us anymore. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to keep calm. "What are you doing here, Mark?" My voice was tight, but I didn't want to lose control. Not in front of him. Not in front of Mia. Mark shrugged, a playful look still on his face. "Oh, just keeping her company. Making sure she's having a good time." His eyes flicked toward Mia, then back to me, as if he enjoyed the tension. "I guess she wasn't having enough fun with you." Mia's eyes widened, her expression pained. She took a small step toward me, her voice quiet. "James, stop it. This isn't his fault. It's mine." But I was done listening to her excuses. Done with the games. Done with being the guy who was left in the shadows while she did whatever she wanted. I stepped forward, closing the distance between Mark and myself, my jaw clenched. "You think you can just waltz in here and take over?" I said, my words low and dangerous. "You think this is a game?" Mark didn't flinch. He stood his ground, his smirk only widening. "You're a little late to the party, James. She's not interested in whatever you're offering anymore. Maybe you should have figured that out before you became Mr. Invisible." Something inside me snapped, something I didn't even know was there. A dark wave of emotion I hadn't expected. Anger, betrayal, frustration. All of it coiled inside me like a spring ready to explode. Before I could even process it, I swung. It was a blur. 1 second, Mark was standing there, mocking me with his smug grin, and the next, I felt the sickening satisfaction of my fist connecting with his jaw. The force of the punch sent him stumbling backward, his face crumpling in shock and pain. Mia gasped, her hands flying to her mouth, her eyes wide. "James, what the hell are you doing?" But I wasn't listening. My heart was pounding in my chest, the adrenaline surging through my veins. I wasn't thinking anymore. I wasn't worried about the consequences. All that mattered was the satisfaction of seeing the smirk wiped off Mark's face. All that mattered was making Mia realize what she had lost, what she was losing. Mark staggered, clutching his jaw, his face reddening with fury. He raised his hands, ready to fight back, but before he could make a move, the The bouncers were on him, pulling him away. Enough! One of them shouted, shoving him toward the exit. You two, get out of here. I didn't even wait for them to throw him out. I turned to Mia, my breath coming in heavy, uneven gasps. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with disbelief. But beneath it, I saw something else, a flicker of something I hadn't seen in her in a long time. Fear. I'm not going anywhere, I said, my voice low and steady. Not until you understand exactly what you've done. The adrenaline was still pumping through me, my chest heaving, my knuckles aching from the impact of the punch. The sound of Mark's staggering footsteps and the bouncers' harsh voices blurred into the background, but I couldn't focus on that. I only had eyes for Mia, who stood frozen in front of me, her face pale, her hands still pressed to her lips as if she were trying to keep from speaking or crying, or both. James, she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I didn't know what to say. All I knew was that my heart was pounding painfully in my chest, and I was barely keeping my composure. This wasn't how I imagined the night going. Hell, this wasn't even how I imagined the last few months going. But here we were. Mia looked from me to the door where Mark had been dragged out, his face still twisted in a mixture of surprise and anger. She took a step back, as though distancing herself from me. You hit him, she said softly, her voice distant. You actually hit him. I swallowed hard, trying to find my voice. He deserved it. No, she whispered, shaking her head. I deserved it. We deserved it. She took another step back, her eyes darting around the club, as if searching for an escape. I've been running, James. I've been running from everything. From you. From us. I couldn't let her walk away again. Not now. Not when I was finally laying everything on the line, telling her what had been building up for so long. Stop. Stop running, Mia. My voice was rough, raw. Stop pretending you don't see what's happening. I'm done being the guy who just watches you slip away. I'm done letting you disappear into someone else's world while I'm left behind in mine. If you're going to leave, leave. But don't keep dragging me along this endless path of uncertainty. I don't want to keep fighting for a ghost. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, I thought she might actually say something that would change everything. But instead, she just stared at me, her expression unreadable. I don't know what to say anymore, she said, her voice so soft that I could barely hear her over the beat of the music. I didn't think you'd ever do this. I didn't think you'd ever fight for us. I thought you were fine with how things were. I wasn't fine, I said sharply. I've been telling myself I was, because I didn't want to face the truth. But the truth is, I don't know who you are anymore, Mia. I don't know who I am in this mess either. She closed her eyes, as though trying to hold back the flood of emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. A moment of silence passed between us, heavy and full of regret. You've changed, she said finally, her voice breaking. I see it now. You're not the guy I fell in love with. You're someone else. Someone angry. Someone who doesn't need me. My heart sank at her words. There was a sharp pain, a crack that spread across the surface of my chest. The truth had been gnawing at me all along. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had changed. But wasn't it because of everything she'd done? Everything that had been happening in this relationship? Had I really changed? Or had I just finally stopped pretending like none of it mattered? I didn't change because I wanted to, I said quietly. I changed because I had to. I had to become someone who could stand up for myself, for what I deserve. I had to become someone who wasn't afraid of losing you anymore. Mia's face crumpled as she dropped her gaze to the floor, her shoulders shaking. James, I'm scared. I don't know what I want. I don't know who I am anymore, either. And I don't know how to fix this. How do we fix this? I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to pull her into my arms, to make everything feel okay again. I knew I couldn't do that. Not this time. Not until she saw what was right in front of her. Not until she understood how far things had gone. I don't know if we can fix this, I said finally. I don't know if we can go back to what we had. Maybe it's too late for that. But I know one thing for sure. I'm done trying to save something that's already broken. She looked at me, her eyes filled with tears, her lips trembling. You're saying we're over? I'm saying I don't know, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I'm saying that maybe it's time we stopped pretending we can fix something that isn't meant to be fixed. Maybe we've already tried to rebuild 100 times, and it's just not enough. Mia wiped her eyes quickly, her face a mask of pain. You can't mean that. I reached for her hand, my touch gentle but firm. I don't want to mean it, Mia, but I can't keep putting everything into this and getting nothing in return. I can't keep being the person who waits for someone who's already gone. The room felt cold around us. I could hear the pulsing beat of the music, the chatter of the crowd in the distance, but it all felt so distant, so far away from what was happening between us, what was left between us. For a long moment, Mia didn't say anything. She just stood there, staring at me, the tears still glistening in her eyes. I could see the conflict on her face, the love, the pain, the guilt, all mixed together in a way that made me ache. But I couldn't save her anymore. I couldn't save us. Not if she didn't want it. I'm sorry, James, she whispered, barely audible. I'm so sorry. And then she turned and walked away. I didn't try to stop her.